Hello, and welcome to today's live Writer's Digest webinar titled How to Launch a Wildly Satisfying Paid Copywriting Career in 60 Days or Less with freelance copywriter Mindy McCourse. Mindy McCourse is a freelance copywriter who serves as the executive editor for The Barefoot Writer. Mindy was the original reality blogger for the Wealthy Web Writer and chronicled her real-life journey of going from 24K to six figures in just 1 year as a freelance writer. With 3 young children, Mindy considers herself a full-time mom who is lucky enough to make an impressive income on the side. She hails from Albuquerque, New Mexico, where she writes with a full mountain view and with her 3 Cavalier King Charles Spaniels always close by. Also joining us today is Katie Yakel, one of the co-founders of AWAI, the company that publishes Barefoot Writer. She'll be behind the scenes answering your questions during Mindy's presentation in the question box. And at the very end, she'll moderate the Q&A with Mindy, asking her as many of your great questions as possible. And so with that, Mindy, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself and to begin your presentation, and I won't jump in unless you need me to.
All right, sounds great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Sue. And hello, everybody. Thank you so much for calling in. I am so glad to be here. And I want to person you to how to launch a wildly satisfying paid copywriting career in 60 days or less. Now, I've got a lot that I want to talk to you about, so I just want to reiterate. Please be sure to type in your questions as we go because we're going to move fast and I want to make sure that I don't miss anything, and if we don't cover all the questions today, then we'll make sure we find a way to get to them as soon as possible. So let's dive right in, okay? First of all, today we are going to cover the whys, the whats, and the hows. So specifically, I'll be explaining why copywriting comes easy for writers in particular, what copywriting is anyway, because a lot of folks are, including writers, are quite unclear on that. And most importantly, how to get it right if you want to make this your career and if you want to launch a paid writing career. And also, please, please, please stick around to the end because I want to share with you something that will help you get up and running as a paid writer as quickly as possible. All right, so let's get going. Now, before we get into the meat of this presentation, I want to give you a glimpse of the wide variety of lifestyles that copywriting can really bring. So I want to introduce you to a few of my fellow barefoot writers. Many of them are friends, and all of them are working writers. Right off, we have Patty Morrow here, pictured on the screen. She's actually a seasoned travel writer who uses a lot of copywriting techniques in her travel writing. She's seen here skydiving over Maui, which was actually a project that she got through a copywriting project. The entire project was comped. She was not only paid to write the project, but the skydiving incident was also comped because of her copywriting skills. She lives a very exciting life as a copywriter. Also pictured here is Joe Lilly, a friend of mine. He writes for the business-to-business market, and you can see his little daughter in the background. She's about 3 years old now. He goes to the park with her almost every morning, and while she plays, he works on some of his copywriting assignments for the business-to-business market. He earns money from those assignments, and he gets to spend time with his daughter. Kristen Dalton here in the bottom right-hand corner. She's from Florida. She's got a great story. She once did some copywriting that saved the dance studio where her daughter used to practice baton twirling because apparently there were some financial issues that the dance studio was going through, and Kristen was able to write an appeals letter that saved the entire studio, and that's her happy copywriting success story. She's gone on to continue with copywriting projects. There's also Karen McCauley of Florida. She goes to Singer Island to do a lot of her copywriting. She writes for the employment industry. I love her story too. She had some overflow work as a copywriter, so she taught her daughter how to do some copywriting, and her daughter, who was a single mom, was able to earn enough money for a down payment on her first house, which is such a happy story. So Tim Cotroneo, he is a travel writer who gets a lot of his vacations comped, just like Patty Morrow. He's pictured here in Turks and Caicos Island. And then, oh, there she is. She popped up before. Right up in the top right-hand corner, this is a friend of mine, Carleen Angley Cole. She is a fantastic, fun-loving, happy individual, but she's also a heavyweight in the health copywriting industry. She's a very prominent, well-known writer. She's made 6 figures several years running as a copywriter, while raising 4 kids. I think she might have even made 7 figures a couple years. I'm not exactly sure. But she's here. She travels a lot. She's shown here with her husband in South Africa. And then here's another copywriter that I know. This is Serena Behe. Her husband was deployed. He was on several deployments, actually. And so she was limited from seeing him. And then she was also chained to a job with a very strict schedule. So she was feeling claustrophobic in life, she told me once. She decided to become a copywriter so she could leave her job, and now she's able to travel with her husband when he goes out on trainings, and she can stay near him when he's deployed in different places. So what I hope to show you by sharing all of these pictures of these people that I know is that all kinds of people really fit into this lifestyle, and they really make it work for them in different ways. So this is what's great about copywriting is that it's such an unlimited career because you can suit it to fit your lifestyle, your goals, and your individual interests. So I'll introduce you to more copywriters throughout this presentation and show you some other options. But next, I want to explain why I'm here talking to you about this and how I got started. So let me tell you a little bit more about myself. Actually, I am a longtime Writer's Digest subscriber, which is one of the reasons it's such an honor to be talking to you all today. I'm just tickled to be here. So I've always loved writing. It was always a hobby of mine, but I didn't think that I could actually do it for a living. I didn't think that I could make enough money to support myself, so I was content to let it just be a hobby on the back burner. So I went the typical school route, went through college, got a management degree, and then got a great job with salary, benefits, everything that you're supposed to want in a job, right? Except there were a few limiting factors. First of all, I had this schedule that prevented me from seeing this guy. This was my fiance. He's now my husband. But he worked irregular hours for his job, and I worked an 8 to 5 schedule with an hour-long commute on either end of my day. So we never got to see each other. And along with that, I never got to see my puppies. Sue mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast that I'm a big Cavalier King Charles Spaniel fan, and I have three of these puppies here are mine, and we were puppy sitting for 2 others. And if you know anything about Cavalier King Charles Spaniels, you know that they're companion dogs. They're happiest when they've got people next to them. And in fact, there are even some breeders who won't sell you a Cavalier unless you can prove that you're home most of the day. So it was difficult for me to be away from them at the time. You know, they were my babies. And then there were also the complications of a typical job. I didn't see eye to eye with my boss. I felt a little claustrophobic under this particular person. And I didn't really love making fancy spreadsheets all day, which was kind of the extent of my position. So I got to the point where I thought, you know what, this just is not working for me. I was only 26 at the time. And so I thought, there's got to be something better. I'm not going to just sit here and let my best years go by. So I started looking for other jobs. I looked everywhere. I started applying myself everywhere. And right about that time was when I got this magazine in the mail that talked about copywriting. And when I first heard about it, I'll admit it, I thought, no way, this can't be possible. How could I have made it all the way through graduate school and have never heard of copywriting, which was totally the truth. So I didn't think that it was real. I didn't think that it could be an actual job. And I put the magazine aside. But then I continued my job search. Nothing was happening. Nobody was hiring me. And every now and then I would go back to that magazine and kind of think, well, you know, what they're saying here about copywriting, it sounds interesting. Maybe I should look into it. Eventually I did. I started researching it. I looked up the people that were mentioned as copywriters online. They were real. They had real life careers. And so one day I just decided, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make the leap. I put in my notice at work. I told them I was leaving in 2 weeks, and then in May of 2007, I stayed home well, I no longer had a job, so I stayed home, had my puppies underneath me by my desk, and I said, I'm a copywriter. And I was so excited. I was so excited to get started. But if you're wondering what happened at that point, the answer is nothing, because it took me a couple months to kind of just get up and running. I was studying the art of copywriting and persuasive writing at the time, but there were a lot of things that I didn't know about running a writing business, connecting with clients, putting myself out there. So it wasn't really until I went to a conference that was put on by AWAI, American Writers and Artists, Inc., that essentially taught me about how to put myself out there, how to apply myself. And that was where I met real life copywriters who served as proof that this world was real. So from there, I started getting jobs, I started connecting with clients, and I started getting experience, but I kind of stayed small. I was in many ways very afraid to put myself out there. And so after 2 years of that, of just earning a small but decent income, like Sue said, that second year I earned $24,000, which was something considering I had never earned anything from writing before I'd started all this, but it still wasn't anywhere close to what I was making at my salary when I had left my job. So I felt like I really needed to justify this huge leap, and I also wanted to see if I could validate myself as a writer. So I went back to that conference. It's AWAI's Fast Track to Copywriting Success in Boot Camp, which happens every October. I went back there. I connected with the AWAI president, Rebecca Matter, and pitched an idea called the reality blog. And it's something she took me up on. Basically, I agreed, or she and I worked out an agreement where I would blog about my writing journey, everything that I was going through, my ups and downs, how I was putting myself out there, what I was doing wrong, mistakes, successes, everything. And I was going to make a very public goal that I would make 6 figures in 1 year. So I did that. It was terrifying. It was rewarding. It was an incredible experience. And by the end of the year, I discovered that everything was true. If you really put yourself out there, you follow everything that they say that you should do, then it happens. And I hit 6 figures actually on December 30th. It was right up to the last minute, but it was quite a leap from what I had made the previous year. So it was an incredible success. I felt validated. I spent the next several years working and writing and earning a healthy income. But what's great about this career, and what I appreciate in particular, is that your priorities can change. So now, 7 years later, I've got 3 kids. You see them here giving a backyard concert. My oldest just turned 5. They're all very young. They're very needy. And so my priorities have changed in the sense that I'm no longer income focused. I'm more quality of life focused. So what I want to do, I want to basically point out that your goals can be lifestyle based. For instance, now I want to be available for my kids whenever they need me. So I can tell you firsthand, it is possible to make a lot of money in this industry, but I think what's more important is to realize that you can use copywriting as a vehicle to build the most satisfying life that you want. So yes, you absolutely can work at the beach, you can work poolside, you can work anywhere you get a good internet connection, or at least anywhere you can have your laptop powered up. Do I do that? Sometimes. I have on occasion. But to be honest, I prefer working in my office, which is pictured here because I've got my ergonomic keyboard and all my screens. And my kids can come visit me whenever they need to, whenever they want to share a new drawing with me, or whenever they want to talk or ask a question. So the main reason that I have continued with copywriting, besides the fact that I love writing, is that it gives me a ton of freedom along with a lot of extra income. And it's absolutely something that you can do too if you have any kind of interest in writing for a living. So let's talk about why people do this, other than the reasons that I just went over. Why is it something that writers can do? And I think why a lot of people should ask themselves if this is something that they might want to do, because when you talk to most people, I want to say pretty much anybody, when you ask them what they want most in life, a lot of them will tell you they want time and they want money, right? Time to follow their passions and go places with people they love, money to fund those things, right? But what it really boils down to is freedom. And the thing about copywriting is that it can give you both, because at the end of the day, it's the quality of your life that counts, right? It's not necessarily how much money you make. It's not necessarily how much time you spend at home. It's whether you enjoy that time and whether you feel like you're really free to get the most out of it. And what I love about copywriting in particular is that it seems to, in comparison to several good friends and people I know, it seems to give me a lot of extra time, because not only am I home with a flexible schedule, but I'm doing something I love, and it also gives you the option to make plenty of money. So that's a great perk to the lifestyle. So let's talk about why this applies to writers in particular. And I say that because a lot of people get copywriting mixed up with salesmanship. Actually, a lot of people get copywriting mixed up with legal issues, and they'll ask me, you're a copywriter? You must work in a lawyer's office, right? You do copyrights? No, that's a totally different thing. When you're copywriting, you're telling stories, you're crafting words. There is definitely an element of salesmanship, but at the end of the day, you're writing for a living. And the type of writing absolutely can vary. You might write stories, depending on the project. You might write long copy, short copy, social media. There are emails, autoresponders, ebooks, case studies. There are tons of other things that I'm sure I'm not even thinking of. And you can write these things for every industry imaginable. But what's great is that you can adapt copywriting to the project that you're interested in. So I like to think of it kind of in terms of a pro golfer, you know? They have their skills, they have their core fundamental skills, but they have to adapt to different courses. what it is the root of their craft always stays the same. So it's the same with copywriting. It's a different kind of writing than what most of us grow up doing. So if you currently write fiction, for instance, or even nonfiction, copywriting can be a great exercise because it, the way that I look at it, it's a different type of writing in the sense that like exercising. You know, a lot of people like to do cross training. You like to work out the different muscles of your body so that you're well balanced. Same thing with copywriting and fiction writing, poetry. It works out different areas of your brain, so to speak, right? So for fiction writers, it's a great way to get a steady income and practice your craft. And I want to show you a picture of my friend Heather Robson here. Excuse me, Heather Robson. She's got a lot of great contacts and clients in the industry. And I think what separates her from other fiction writers is that because of her copywriting background, she has this particular marketing knowledge. Because honestly, from everything I've read and from people I've talked about, the three areas where fiction writers tend to fall short is discipline, for one, consistency, and self-promotion. And those are all things that once you get into the copywriting world, and if you're regularly promoting yourself so that you can connect with clients or put your work out there, discipline, consistency, and self-promotion are three things that really do help you get the contacts and the quality that you need. So let's continue talking about why this applies to writers, right? Because this is another particular thing that I think copywriting, this is the way that copywriting, I think, stands out. It's not actually just for writers. It actually, I'd say, it applies to everybody. And here are some other examples. This is Melanie Rembrandt. She's another very well-known copywriter, but she got into copywriting because she was running her own public relations business, and she needed a way to promote her business. So she learned about copywriting. She began to promote her business. Now she's a very well-known public relations specialist and a well-known copywriter. Brian Oxner, a friend of mine, he worked in sales and finance. He wanted to better promote some of the projects that he was on, so he started writing for the financial market. He built up a great copywriting practice as a financial copywriter. And this is Rick Boatwright, another copywriter I know. He's actually, his main job, his first passion, I suppose you could call it, is as a veterinary chiropractic doctor. He works with horses, as you can see here, but he writes copy to promote his chiropractic business. So now let's talk about why it's a stable career move, because this is the other question that I think I get asked most often is that, yeah, okay, it's nice to be a writer, you know, but if you're a freelance writer and you say that this is your job, so to speak, is it even stable, you know, because don't you deal with the feast or the famine cycle? Well, first let's look at some statistics, all right? 40% of America's workforce will be freelancers by 2020, according to a study by software company Intuit, which is crazy. It's more than 60 million people right there. And more importantly, let's see, it was Forbes magazine that pointed out that the number of freelance workers will soon outpace the number of full-time workers in our society. And that has a lot to do with the way the landscape is changing with workplace flexibility and telecommuting and just the fundamental nature of the way we're all electronically connected anyway. Basically, workers from all kinds of different industries are finding that they can be really productive, sometimes even more productive when they're outside of their corporate office and without a long-term employer. Let's see, another statistic about that. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the number of temporary employees, you know, in other words, freelancers, it rose by 29% just between 2009 and 2012, and they're working on new numbers. They're anticipating that that number's probably gone up. But there's a reason for all of this. Yes, a lot of it has to do with the fact that we can manage this now because of telecommuting and all the freedom that the internet has given us. But what it boils down to is a lot of people are realizing they're not built to work in a cubicle all day. And even better than that is that there's no longer really a stigma that self-employed people can't get a real job. It's kind of like when you think about people who self-publish their own books. There used to be a stigma against that, but now there's not, you know. People used to say self-published people couldn't really write, right? We'll tell that to Amanda Hawking, who I think just signed a very, very, very healthy, maybe 6-figure, 7-figure deal. I don't remember the specifics, but in other words, independence is being much more widely embraced in the marketplace, especially for writers. And self-employed people nowadays, they have so much flexibility and control over both their income and their lives. And because of that, because of the response, and because of the fact that people can do their best work as freelancers and as self-employed individuals, opportunities are literally exploding across every industry, and writing in particular. And again, this goes back to the connection to the internet, because the internet is essentially nothing without copy, right? So the number of freelance workers Like I said, it's going to outpace full-time workers by 2020. And a good way to think of that is if you have a dinner party, let's say, for 10, and you have it on a weeknight, at least 4 of your friends can come over and stay for pie and cocktails because they're not going to have to worry about getting up early and going to work and commuting and clocking in the next morning. So let's continue talking about why it's a stable career move. There's something else that I like to point out. First of all, know that there are all kinds of versions of copywriting. Like I said, and I want to emphasize again, this is a career that you adapt to your lifestyle. So you can work full-time, absolutely. That's what I did for several years. You can work part-time. That's what I've been doing in the last couple of years as I've had kids. You can work in-house. There are different ad agencies and different companies in general who hire copywriters. You can work for yourself as a client and not connect with outside clients, or you can freelance for lots of clients. But essentially, freelancing is so stable because what it does is it means you're never without options. For instance, a pilot. Take a pilot, for instance. My husband used to be a pilot. If a pilot loses his job, in most cases, he can go teach. He can teach about being a pilot, but there aren't many other options unless he goes out and gets other job skills, right? If my clients were to cut all ties with me today, and I hope they don't, but if they were, then I have about 24 other directions I can go. I can go connect with other clients. I can start writing for myself. I know a lot about different projects in different industries that are in need of copy, and I know how to approach them, and I know exactly what to do. So I think of it as kind of shoring up your basement, like there's a tornado coming and you're stockpiling endless rows of canned goods, right? You will never run short on basics in this profession, so you'll always survive. And if you think about it, a lot of other professions, they don't even really have basements, so you can't shore up all those goods that keep you going. Oh, and speaking of tornadoes, I wanted to share this picture. This is Steve Coombs, who's also a very well-established copywriter, but he's got such an interesting niche. He focuses his writing, he specializes in writing about disaster preparedness. So I thought that was pretty applicable considering that I was just talking about tornadoes. Now let's talk about the what's. Let's talk about what is copywriting. Well, first, let me show you what it's not. It's not sitting in an office hunched over a desk in a suit and tie, right? Like I said, you could work in-house at different agencies, and some people I know have wonderful experiences with that, but it doesn't have to be that if that's not what you want. It doesn't have to be run by a schedule. But interestingly, this picture is actually of a copywriter that I know. His name is Ed Eslow, and he posed for this picture, I think, as part of a publicity campaign for a project he was working on. But here's Ed on a normal day-to-day basis, right? Copywriting, essentially, if we were to just try to drill it down, it means taking a good idea and promoting it, talking about it persuasively, kind of like if you want to go see a movie and your friend wants to see a different movie and you persuade your friend to see the movie that you want. That's essentially copywriting. It's using language to change opinions, it's not anything that's limited or cramped. Now, Ed Eslow, here, I want to tell you a little bit more about his story. He actually started out as an engineer. Then he decided he wanted to change. He didn't want to move into sales or anything like that, but he did know that he'd always had a passion for mechanical watches and luxury timepieces. And if you see in this picture, he's got a pretty fancy watch on his wrist. I apologize, I don't remember the type, but I know it was some kind of very fancy watch. So he started writing for the luxury timepiece market. He's officially a copywriter for the luxury timepiece market. He's involved in all kinds of promotions with jewelers and some of the big names in the watch market. And he loves his new life. He goes trout fishing in the middle of the week to avoid the crowds. This is something that he calls his Mexican branch office because he's also getting into travel writing for those times when he's not working on watch-related projects. Essentially, it's another example of how you can make copywriting work for you, base it around your passions, and get the most out of life. So let's talk about what qualifications you need to be a copywriter. I think I'm going to start out with what you don't need. And I want to show a picture of my friend Ray Robinson here, shown graduating from college 2 years ago. Ray is actually a copywriter now. She's an incredible up-and-comer. She's already very talented. And I think it's fantastic that she got her degree. She's got lots of doors open to her because of that. But what's great about copywriting, you don't need the degree. You don't even need experience in it. You really just need the motivation to move forward. And so that's what Ray has done. So this is Ray nowadays. She took that motivation. She took her love of writing. She moved forward. She connected with clients. She said, here's what I like to write about. Here's how I can show you that I'm dependable. Give me a project. Let's work out a deal. And I believe she told me in this picture where she's sitting by that lake, she's working on a major sales letter I think it was for promoting some tea that hot tea that you drink. And so she looks pretty happy. And I know one thing that she's particularly happy about is that she's not going to have to move back in with her parents like so many other boomers these days, so many other recent graduates, because she has this way of sustaining herself and earning a living and basically moving forward in life. And she's done quite well, because not even long after she got started, she was wooed, so to speak, by a very well-known marketer who actually flew her to Chicago. That's where she is in this picture, participate in a conference and to talk about some new projects. And so, another great example of how well this lifestyle can be molded to fit your needs and your interests. Now here, I want to take just a minute to pause and relax, because I know we're covering a lot. And I know that I can get very excited. And we're about to take off and start running again. So, deep breaths. All right, let's go. So, let's talk about how to decide what you write. Now, I know I've said many times what's great about this profession is that you can decide what to write. You can write whatever you want. And that's true, but it's not very helpful to a lot of people who want to know specifics. So, what I like to say, and what a lot of other industry professionals will also say, is that there are two ways you can take. You can start writing as a generalist, where essentially you put yourself out there, you see who's looking for copywriters, you find out what they're looking for, and then you write those projects, you write whatever topics it is, and you kind of get a little bit of experience in all kinds of different writing. Basically, you're a generalist, and that way you get to shore up some samples, you get to sort of see what fits for you, you get to decide whether you like writing long copy or short copy or emails or social media posts, for instance. And then as you decide what it is that you really want, then you kind of drill down and you put yourself out there as a specialist in a specific niche. Or if you are very well entrenched in a specific industry already, or if you have a specific passion that you would love writing about, like Ed Eslow really loves the luxury timepiece market, then you just go for that. That's what you start writing about. So on the one hand, you would go out and look for marketers or clients who are looking for copy, and then you connect with them and ask them, basically tell them about your background, tell them you're ready to get experience, and here are these things that you want to write for them. Or you connect with those specific clients in those specific industries, and then you present yourself as a copywriter to them. I think Pam Foster is one of the best examples of this. She's shown here on a beach in San Diego, actually. Pam started writing for the business-to-business market, and she did very, very, very well for several years. And she got quite a bit of experience writing all kinds of copy, web copy in particular, I believe. And then she started thinking that she'd like to focus more on something that really particularly interests her, which was pets. She's a huge pet fan. She loves dogs. And so she started writing for the veterinary market. And now she's essentially the go-to pet copywriter. I believe she said her business just kind of blew up in the best possible way once she put herself out there as a specialist. And she was able to make a lot more money. She was able to secure a lot more jobs, a lot more writing jobs in a quicker amount of time than she ever had before, even though she'd already had a great name for herself in other kinds of copywriting. And so I think a good way to look at it is if you were to, let's say you're not feeling well and you go to the doctor, right? We all go to general physicians, and they're very helpful, they're very talented, they're very skilled. But if you have a specific problem, then you want to go to a specialist, right? And we all know specialists make a lot more money. Well, it's the same thing in the writing world. You can be a generalist, you can make a great living, you can know about a lot of different things, or you can specialize, and while the pool of clients that you'll reach out to will shrink slightly, depending on the industry, but most likely, the amount that you can charge will go up. So that's one approach to finding clients, is to start with the topic. Another way to find clients, and this is what I recommend because it worked for me, is to go to boot camp or other writing conferences. This is a picture of Marianne Pascarini. She's on the left. She's a copywriting friend of mine. She's shown here with Maggie Cooper, who's also another copywriter. Each other, they were both able to secure jobs. They were able to establish a support group of copywriters. It's the two of them plus a couple others, where they connect with each other on a regular basis and encourage each other and keep each other motivated and give each other tips in terms of moving forward. And what was so particularly useful about going to boot camp, and this is what happened for me too, is that when you go, there's also a job fair And there are several marketers that you can connect with. And you have the conversation right there because, yes, this is a virtual opportunity and you don't have to leave your house at all. You can still be completely successful, but there is something just incredibly magnetic about actually being in the same room as somebody who might want to hire you and actually, making that face-to-face contact. And then you can have a relationship running for years to come, even if you never see each other again. But the point that I'm trying to make is that it is important to put yourself out there, whether you go to this conference or to maybe an industry conference. Let's say like Pam, you decide that you want to write for the pet industry. I know that when Pam was first getting herself established, she went to a few industry conferences where veterinarians and pet suppliers congregated, and she met with them face to face, and she started talking to them about their copy needs. Hey, are you online? Do you have a website? Do you have emails that go out to your list? Do you need this? Do you need that? She was able to connect with several different clients. I think that it's a much more rewarding and a much easier way to connect with clients than if you were to and say, hey, I'm a writer looking for work, because that doesn't really give anybody a big benefit. And why would I really be that interested in you, as opposed to having that face-to-face connection or something that's even just a little more personal. Phone connections can work. You can call clients. You can send them actual letters in the mail. There are lots of different approaches to finding clients, but I recommend going essentially to the watering holes of clients. Now, there is one job site in particular that I recommend. It's for members of AWAI, but it demonstrates a good purpose. It's called directresponsejobs.com. Members of the Barefoot Writer Club also get access to this, but it's specifically for copywriters. So they're not just looking for a writer per se who can put words together. They're looking for somebody who's skilled in the art of persuasive writing. And the difference between them and other job sites is that they are willing to pay the good money for this kind of writing. And now here's an example I want to share. When I was first getting started and first kind of getting my feet wet in terms of figuring out how to connect with clients and how to promote myself and land paying projects, I was talking to a friend of mine whose father-in-law runs a farm and has an he sells pumpkins and he has a couple other businesses, and he was actually looking for a writer to write some promotional materials for him. So she put me in touch with him. I showed him, this is what I do, this is the kind of copy I write, and these are my fees. And now I had gotten a list of fees. I'd gotten ideas for how to set my fees from networking with other copywriters. When I showed this man my fees, he basically well, actually, I apologize. I sent them over email, so I didn't show them to him directly. But my friend came to me and gave me the feedback that her father-in-law had looked at the fees and kind of laughed and said, she's never going to get money, like this. Nobody will ever pay these fees. Well, he was wrong, obviously, because a lot of people pay those fees, and I've since gone on to have a lot of clients who pay even more than those fees. But the difference was this particular person, who has remained a small businessman and is unfortunately struggling in his business, he did not understand the power of persuasive writing and copywriting. And so he wasn't willing to pay for it, That's okay. He doesn't have to. But I think, and what I learned is that more important for me was to connect with people who do understand the value of this type of writing, who are willing to put that value on it and pay you the fees you deserve, and then you go from there. There are absolutely situations where you can connect with people who aren't familiar with copywriting, and then you educate them, and then sometimes they pay you the fees, or sometimes your work shows them what kind of value you provide. If you're interested in taking that route, then by all means do it. If you don't want to educate somebody on the specifics of copywriting, then you don't have to go that route. So there are definitely lots of different options for connecting with clients. I think the quickest way to earning an income and being able to support yourself as a writer is by going to and are willing to pay for good copywriting. So more on the subject of money. Everybody asks how soon you can expect to earn money, and there is not a hard and fast rule. Again, because copywriting is suited to fit your lifestyle, it all depends on your goals. It depends on how much time you put into writing. It depends on the industry that you want to write for. For instance, I know that if you decide to write for the business-to-business industry, a lot of copywriters get up and running faster simply because there is such a huge need in that industry. If you want to write for an industry that's just a little bit, less known, I know that Steve Coombs, writing for the disaster preparedness industry, it's taken him a while to cultivate relationships with potential clients, because it's not a huge sweeping industry like business to business, but now he has some very valuable relationships. So it depends on how quickly you want to earn a certain income. It depends on how you want to use that income, whether you just want to earn enough money to supplement your current income. There are several people I know who are copywriters. One in particular, I can't think of her name, but she's a full-time school teacher and she loves her job. She doesn't want to leave her job at all. But she doesn't make enough money to do the kinds of things that she wants to do, or basically to suit her lifestyle. So she does copywriting on the side. She earns a great little part-time income, and she's happy with that. Other people I know, they're retired, and so they earn basically a little copywriting money on the side so that they can supplement their income and have more fun money. There are some people who, like me, just want to leave their day jobs as soon as possible and need to start making up that money as soon as possible. So it all depends on how you want to do that and how quickly you can do that. In my case, I did definitely walk the plank, and I just kind of quit my job without a backup plan and had to start earning right away. But that was also situational. At the time, I didn't have kids. I had just bought a house, but I didn't really have a lot of other issues or obligations, so I was able to do that. On the other hand, my good friend Chris Alsop, who's been copywriting very successfully for years, she's got 3 kids, 2 of whom are in college. She has not left her full-time job yet, but she's been building up her copywriting business on the side, and she's getting ready to back off on her full-time job. She'll switch to part-time, and then eventually she will no longer have her formal employment, and she'll just be doing her copywriting business. So when it comes to how soon you actually earn money, it all depends on your goals. And I think more importantly, or equally importantly, it depends on how you use your time. For instance, here's a great picture of my friend Cindy Davis. She is in her backyard in Texas. I believe she's north of Austin. It might be north of Dallas. I don't remember. But she's just this lovely lady. She's written all kinds of copy she wrote for the chocolate industry for a while, and now she's focused on the mental health market. She's doing very, very well. Cindy is one of those people who, like you see in this picture, this is literally a work day for her. She can sit by her pool in her pajamas and work and do totally well, be very productive. Personally, I tried that when I first got started as a copywriter. I thought, yes, I don't have to get dressed. I don't have to wear heels anymore. I can stay in my pajamas all day. And I absolutely did that when I was first starting. I stayed in my pajamas all day. Unfortunately, I discovered if I stay in my pajamas all day, it is far too easy to go back to bed, and that's what I did all too often. So I started learning that for me in particular, I need to get up, I need to get dressed, I need to be at least decent enough to answer the door if the mailman comes. And then I found I was a lot more productive. So it depends on how committed you are, how productive you can make your own particular time, which money-making opportunities you're going after, how much time you put into it, and how you want to align your goals with all of that. And I think that's where being connected with a copywriting community really comes in handy, because then you can talk to other people who've come before you, who've done what you want to do, who have definitely learned the hard way, like I have in many ways, who have learned shortcuts, and who can basically steer you in the right direction. So let's talk about how you get started. I was covering the topic on what you do first if you're really serious about launching a career as a paid freelance copywriter. And in my experience, you have to make that commitment. You have to decide that you want to go for it. And I like using the example of writing a book, whereas many of our callers today I think can relate. So often writers say that I'm going to write a book, I'm going to do this, I'm so excited, and they might get started, but they don't follow through, right? And that through. Sure, you might make mistakes along the way. I have done that plenty of times. But the reward at the end, if you just dig in your heels and really get to that point, the reward is really so far beyond what you might imagine. And so I want to give you your 60-day plan, which I'll do in a second. And then I'm also going to give you a shortcut to getting clients. And I want to encourage you to reach out to other writers, other copywriters in particular. You can reach out to us at Barefoot Writer. You can reach out to AWAI, because these organizations are filled with people who are, I think, so genuinely gracious in their advice and their willingness to help new writers along. That's how I got started, because I was able to connect with people who basically gave me a leg up, who gave me tips along the way. It's not that kind of industry where people turn up their noses because they see you as competition. What's amazing about copywriting is there's so much work in so many different kinds of ways that if you meet another copywriter, they're not your competition, they are your ally, and they can help you get started. And then I wanted to emphasize that the people you ignore, for that question that I once received about who you would ignore along the way, ignore the doubters, because so many people, either they don't understand copywriting, or they don't realize how well you can do if you want to be a writer and make your own living. Just ignore them. They don't matter. They're not going to help you in your goals. They're not going to help you stay focused. Instead, reach out to other writers, other copywriters along the way for help. Now, let me talk very quickly here about your 60-day plan to launching a paid copywriting career. And I just want to emphasize before I get into it, there are so many different ways you can go that this is sort of the general outline. And then, of course, if there are questions around it, I'm happy to answer them. Number one, so first week, learn how to write persuasively. Find out all you can about copywriting. It is definitely an art form. It's not the same as just being able to write well. And in fact, for those of you who do write well and who write at a very high educational level, that's something that you're going to want to tweak, because really copywriting, persuasive writing, it's more like conversational writing. It's more like having a conversation with your best friend, which is not the same for most people anyway. It's not the same. You don't use the same words and the same expressions and the same pauses and punctuation that you would when you're having a conversation with your best friend as you would if you're writing a formal paper. You want to learn how to write persuasively, because that is the root of every copywriting opportunity. It's the root of every money-making opportunity within the copywriting career. And so you want to master that. And to be honest, it's something you go back to regularly. I constantly refer back to the program that I learned, which was AWAI's 6-figure course for accelerated copywriting, because it's like anything. You just need to go back up and brush up on your skills. A lot of times new techniques come out, new shortcuts that other people have discovered, and it's enjoyable. I think it's quite enjoyable, especially if you enjoy writing. But that's the root of everything. So first, focus on writing persuasively. And then you need to think about the projects that you want to write. You can spend an entire week on this. You need to read up on the projects that are related to long copy, like writing sales letters, for instance, that could be 12 to 20 pages long, or writing short copy, like a 5-line email, or putting Twitter posts together for a business. Then the next step is to create some writing samples. There are several different ways you can do this. You can write what's called on spec for different clients, where you approach them, you say, hey, I'd like to write for you. You don't need to pay me unless you like what I write and you use it. Because best case scenario, you write something, they love it, they pay you, you move forward. Worst case scenario, you write an actual sample for a client, and then you can just put it in your portfolio as good work that you can share with people. See, week 4. Launch yourself online. This is so key, because I think if you want to be a copywriter, especially given that we live in an online world today, you need to have some kind of online presence. So number one, put yourself out there on LinkedIn. It's free. It's basically your online resume. It's a great way to show that you can put words together persuasively, because you're essentially promoting your own skills. Look at other copywriting samples look at other samples of copywriters who have a presence up on LinkedIn. You can look at mine. You can look at Pam Foster's. She has a great one. All the other writers that I've mentioned today would be great examples. Once you get your presence online through LinkedIn put together, you would be best off setting up your website. You certainly don't have to do this right off. You can even start writing for several clients before you put together a website. But again, it's basically an easy to access sample of your work. It shows people that you're serious, and it's a way to present yourself professionally. And there are many different resources I can direct you to if you have questions about how exactly to launch yourself online. Next, you want to identify your dream clients. So if you know which niche, for instance, which clients you want to write for, go after them. A friend of mine who's a great copywriter, Christina Gillick, loves writing for the self-help industry, and Nightingale Conant was a dream client of hers. She bought several of their products before she even became a copywriter. She loved their mission. She just really admired the company. So when she got into copywriting and she decided she wanted to write for the self-help market, she approached them. They were her dream client. She has since landed them as a client. So identify your dream clients and start working toward understanding what kinds of copy they need, what kinds of promotional materials they put out, what kinds of messages they want to explain to their customers, how they want to present themselves, and then you basically can work your way toward them. Because I think step 6, week 6, is to reach out to those clients. So you can do that in a variety of ways. If there are any live events where you can meet them, that I think is the best approach. But you can also call them up. You can send them an email. You can send them an actual package. You can reach out to them and tell them that you want to write a spec assignment, like I mentioned before. You can write something for one of their existing products and show it to them as a sample. You can direct them to your LinkedIn resume and show them, look, here's me. This is what I have to offer. I'd like to do this for you. You reach out to them. Sometimes you have to reach out to them again and again. Sometimes it works the first try, and you make a connection, you land a client, and you get going from there. Week 7, and to be honest, I should say this should be going on the entire time. Write, and practice your writing again and again and again. Like all skills, you get better as you do it. So if you write even just 20 minutes a day, just practice your writing. Ideally get feedback, hopefully by connecting with other writers or having you're going right and where you could improve in terms of persuasive writing. Practice your writing, and no matter how far along or how experienced you already are, practice, practice, practice. Even the most experienced, most successful writers still do a lot of extra writing to hone their craft. And to be honest, I think one of the reasons that I was successful after that year that I put together the reality blog is because the year of the reality blog, since I was blogging, that actually worked out to 3 blogs a week. Each blog was around 800 to 1,000 words a week. I'm sorry, each blog was 800 to 1,000 words, probably closer to 1,000. So 3,000 words a week that was being published. And I did that week after week after week, and gradually my writing improved. And then I actually continued with the reality blog for 3 years. So again, blogging 3 times a week for 3 years. I think that made me a much better writer than I would have been if I hadn't had that consistent practice. So no matter what, just write. And then week 8, follow up. So often the big hurdle that I think a lot of people run into is that they reach out to a client, or they maybe launch a website, and then they just leave it out there and hope somebody's going to notice it. You've got to follow up. You never know if maybe you pitched an article idea to a client on a week that they were out on vacation, so it's buried in email oblivion, or maybe they were just having a bad week and weren't able to get to you. If you follow up, and you follow up politely and regularly, and you show them that you're persistent and consistent and really committed to this project that you'd like to connect with them for, then you're golden. It will happen if you are persistent about that. I think this is a great example also of when you connect with live clients, when you go to an industry event, for instance. So often people make those face-to-face connections, and they just hope that they will be remembered by the client. And what if you're the only person who follows up afterwards with a phone call or an email? If you follow up and you do these things consistently, it will work for you. It happens at different speeds for everybody, but it will work for you. You just have to make the commitment. So, one more time, choose the projects you want to write, which means learning a lot about what's out there and what the options are. Create your own writing samples by either doing spec projects or writing for your own website or actually connecting with clients. Put yourself online, get your online professional presence. Identify your 20 dream clients and then go after them. Practice your writing consistently, and try to get feedback from people who understand this world of persuasive writing, and then follow up. So let's get started. First of all, I just want to point out that Barefoot Writer Magazine is designed to help people like you who want to launch paid writing careers as copywriters. So if you'd like to know more, or especially if you'd like to know more about my story and how I was able to get my career up and running, please go to www.thebarefootvwriter.com/writers-digest. And also, as a thank you, I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation that I have a thank you gift for you all for participating. I want to give you this free bonus report called 10 Ways to Get Clients Now. And to access that, you go to www.thebarefootvwriter.com/free-reports. And let's see, I think that wraps it up. So I just want to say thank you. Again, here are the 2 websites. You can go to the top one to get your free copy of 10 Places to Get Clients Now. You can listen to my story on the bottom link. Now we can open it up to questions.
Okay. Oh, boy. Okay, so this is Katie Yeagle. Hi, everybody.
Hi,
wow,
Katie.
lots of great questions, and I can't keep up with them. So let's just start. I've tried to group them even. So if I haven't answered yours, that just means that there's been other similars, and I'm trying to group them that way. Okay, Mindy, let's start with, there's been a couple people that I want to start with this first one. Somebody wants to know, please tell me how this is not a gimmick.
Okay, no, that's a great question.
Yeah, it's so hard for me to answer because this has been 18 years of my life, and I've seen it work for, hundreds, if not thousands of people now. But I definitely appreciate that there is skepticism, and I think people have been impressed with your story, but I think they want a little bit more of how you actually did it.
Right, and I appreciate that question because, like I said, when I first found out about copywriting, I thought, are you kidding me? This can't be real. And to be honest, I think a lot of us are jaded because we've all seen the work from home scams, and there are several things on the internet that, are not necessarily on the up and up. What's different about this, first of all, if you don't believe me, just research it. There are so many copywriters that you can Google. I can, in fact, how about we do this, Katie? I will come up with a list later. We'll probably post it on the Barefoot Writer website, but I'll come up with a list of people who have active working websites, who have LinkedIn presences, who are all working copywriters. They're the real thing. They're living the writer's life. They're living the dream, so to speak. But I think what's important is that the difference between them and the people who are the doubters, like I mentioned before, is the people who are actually succeeding at this. They've done the work. It's not hard work, but you do have to be persistent and consistent. To be honest, I think, based on my own experience, I think learning copywriting, learning the art of persuasive writing, that part's easy. I think if you have great materials to access and a great program, and I am a fan of AWAI because they were my lifeline. That's how I found out about this industry, and I don't know where I'd be without them. I should say this, I certainly wouldn't have 3 kids because I wouldn't be working from home and I wouldn't be making the kind of money that I have. So I am a big advocate of that program. But if you find any kind of copywriting program that can teach you the art of persuasive writing, follow it, learn it. That's not going to be the hard part. The hard part, in my opinion, is the self-confidence that you need to put yourself out there. Because really, if you think about it, writing is a very personal thing. That's the hardest part about this as a career. It's not like you're just following a set of standard operating procedures and there's one answer for every specific situation that a client brings to you. There are specific techniques and approaches to writing different things, but it does come down to your skill as a writer and your approach. And it's very difficult not to get caught up in that personally and not to take feedback or rejection personally. I know, for instance, when I first started and I would work with an editor on the reality blog and get different feedback from different clients, if they sent my copy back and it was striked through with all kinds of red and let's delete this and let's move this and what were you thinking here, Mindy? I was totally distraught. It was an emotional experience because I saw my writing as something that was very personal. What I learned as I became a professional is that no, it's not. Writing is an art, it's a craft, it is personal, but let's be honest, even the best writers, they need proofreaders, they need editors, they can be improved if they write and they write and they write again. So you have to not only learn the actual craft, but the hard part, and I think the reason people become doubters is because you have to actually believe in yourself and put yourself out there often enough and learn to accept any hard knocks that come your way and to overcome them and to keep pushing past them. So in my experience, the people who write on the internet that this is a scam, they're not the ones who are able to stick through it.
Okay. And again, I think it is just a case of people doing some research and getting a comfort level. Now, I know people are looking for some of the how-tos as well. One of the themes that we got here is, what experience do I need and how do I get it? If we can answer that quickly. I mean, some of these questions are so big that I do want to think of other resources that we can offer.
Again, great questions. And the challenging thing is that I think it's situational. You don't actually have to have any kind of writing experience to approach any client as long as you can do the job and get the job done. I think a great story is, I believe, Katie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Monica Day, several years ago, she was somebody who heard about copywriting, got interested in it, started reading the accelerated course for six-figure copywriting, got so excited about it, she reached out to clients before she had even done any practice projects. She landed a client. She connected with somebody. Basically, she let them know she was interested. She had the motivation. She had, I think, might have been a background in the financial world, so at least she could speak the language. but she didn't know what she was doing. And so she was able to reach out to other copywriters. I think maybe Katie, you connected her with somebody who kind of walked her through it. And she went on to become a very successful copywriter. So what that means is, if you're looking for experience, then I recommend you get a program that has exercises and different examples of copywriting that you can copy yourself. You know, writing things out longhand is a great way to learn this skill. Submitting submitting practice writing to people in this industry who can critique it and who can give you feedback is a great way to get experience. Doing spec assignments, like I mentioned, where you approach a client and you say, I'd like to write for you. I'm going to go ahead and put this project together for you, and if you like it, you use it. That's basically a no-risk way to get experience, because the bonus is you might get paid for it. But even better, you will end up with a live sample, and sometimes you even get feedback from the client. But even if you don't have experience, if you feel like you know enough about an industry, then you can start making client connections, and you can learn as you go, as long as you have some kind of resource that teaches you about the art of persuasive writing.
What would you recommend? Okay, I'm going to jump around, and I do want to assure everybody we will answer all these questions. We're going to once this is done, we will take them all, organize them, and get every single question answered. So if we don't get to it in this next time that we have, we'll do that. Mindy, somebody's asking if copywriting can be done part-time.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yep. Well, think of I think the two best examples are people who still enjoy their full-time jobs, so they just write on the weekends or in the evenings or even just an hour at night because they want to have a little side income. People who are retired, who have no intention of writing full-time, but they want a little bit of extra income. I know people who do that. I feel like I essentially write part-time because I rarely get more than 20 hours a week in, just because I had a baby in January, and so I've been very, very part-time. I think that's one of the draws of this lifestyle, is that you can suit it to whatever your lifestyle dictates. You just have to be able to know what you can take on and plan accordingly. You know, so if you plan a project and you're only going to work part-time, then make sure you can coordinate with the client that you'll have it to them in 3 weeks because you plan to work on it part-time. So it's absolutely possible. They don't even need to know you work part-time, to be honest, but I know many people who do that, and they do it successfully.
Okay, and some people are still a little bit unclear about what exactly copywriting is. Now, I know you know, my answers are just look around you. It's everywhere. It's the emails that you get. It's the copy that you see on websites. It's what you get in your mailbox at home. It's catalog copy, website copy, emails. Mindy, what's your answer when people ask you that?
I think the best way that I can describe it is that copywriting I know I've said it's persuasive writing, but it's writing that gets you to act. So this is the way that it differs from traditional advertising or, you know, even fiction or things that tell a story. Copywriting is meant to, let's say we are talking about sales-related copywriting online. That's where somebody wants you to click a link or buy a product or make a donation. Copywriting doesn't actually have to be tied to a monetary thing. It's not always selling. Think about the letters that you get from nonprofits like the Humane Society. You know, I get lots of letters from them. They send these appeal letters, and they're looking for an action. They're looking for me to either make a donation or they want to change my mind about something. So anytime you have writing that is trying to elicit a response from somebody, whether that's an actual action, whether it's a purchase, whether it's a change of mind, that is copywriting, and that's what differs from just a traditional ad with a tagline that's explaining something. But I think that's a great point that Katie made. You see copywriting everywhere, especially because of the internet. You see it online on websites. If you just read somebody's website copy, that's a form of copywriting because they are basically presenting their product or their service to you. They are trying to persuade you that they are the best person for this particular job. They're trying to persuade you that their product is the best, or they are demonstrating that indeed their product is the best. And it takes very articulate language to do that, because we can all say, look, this is my favorite product, it's the best. But who's going to believe that, right? So I think it's the art of persuasive writing. It goes back again to the movie example where I mentioned copywriting. A good example is if you were to try to go watch a movie with your friend and your friend doesn't want to see your movie, you can't just tell your friend, I want to see this movie, let's go see it. You know, that's not how we communicate, right? Instead, you say, look, this movie has these actors. They're very well known. They're up for Academy Awards. This movie is known to make people cry, and I know you want a good, sappy movie. You basically try to connect with their emotions and their core values and elicit some kind of action or response.
And the other thing that again, what is copywriting? If you just look at where money is exchanged, wherever commerce is happening, copywriting is driving that exchange. If you look at any websites that offer information, that is copywriting happening. That is persuasive writing happening. Where if you look within the business to business world, for example, a Target is selling a toaster. That's to the end user. But think about all of the money exchanges that happened before it even got to be on that shelf in Target. For instance, all the parts that were bought and sold, the packaging that was bought and sold, all of that buying and selling is facilitated by copywriting. And when you look at nonprofits and political efforts, all of those messages, all the websites, all the emails to either get you to support a candidate or donate to a cause or take this action or take that action, that is all being written by a copywriter, and it is all being paid for by the people who it's in their interest to get that message out. So copywriting is really everywhere. It drives the economy. So I just wanted to, hopefully that clears that up. Mindy, there are so many questions about fees and setting fees, and I mean, that's a whole nother webinar. What do you want to, how can we best give at least enough information for right now until we can get more information out to everybody? Because that really is a big concern here.
Right, absolutely. And, I feel your pain because I think setting fees was one of the most stressful parts for me about getting started. What I did and what most people I know have done is basically refer to others. So if you, I know, for example, AWAI has a great article online that talks about lots of different fees for people who are doing web writing. There are other copywriters who have their fee scales published online. Bob Bly, a well-known copywriter, I know he at least used to have his fee scales published online. They might be still available.
They're still there.
Right, and so what I know several people did, myself included. Bob Bly, for instance, he's a legendary copywriter. He's got multiple books published. He's won all kinds of awards, and he's just a great guy. So of course his fees are incredibly high because he has earned that distinction, and people are willing to pay him for that. When you're just starting out, obviously you won't start out at that scale. What I did is, I believe for some of my projects, I looked at his fees and I cut them all in half, and I said, here are my starting fees. I looked at a couple other fee scales that I found information on and cut them in half where I thought it was appropriate. Another thing that I know people do is, in general, I would say for most, on a fee scale as opposed to an hourly scale, but to figure out your hourly scale, it's a good idea to do, when you do projects, to still keep track of your time so that you know generally how much time it's taking you. I think there was something I read recently that for a beginner, for a beginner, $150 an hour was not unreasonable, because you do have to factor in the fact that you're self-employed and there will be taxes taken off. So if you can estimate, let's say somebody wants you to write 7 emails and you estimate that that's going to take you 14 hours, then you can calculate a fee based on that. Another option is when you connect with clients, sometimes they have set fees for things, so you do need to ask them their budget, and then if they say, look, this is what we pay for this, then sometimes you just go with that. It's definitely kind of a dance, one step forward, one step back, but as you're getting started, just to give you a baseline, look at other people's fees, cut them down based on where you think you are in relation to them, and then also keep track of your time just so you get a general idea of how quickly you'll be able to get things put together.
Here's just a quick question. What's the difference between web writing and copywriting? There really isn't a difference. Copywriting when we say copywriting, we always mean direct response copywriting, and that it's again anything that gets people to take action. The most common form these days is direct response writing that's on the web, and so that's what we refer to as web writing. And then once you get into that, if you think of that as a vehicle for the writing that you'll be doing, there are websites, emails, blog posts, all kinds of content, all of the various things that you see when you're dealing with the web. Again, that's all forms of copywriting. I hope that answers that question. Oh boy, I want to. Mindy, some people would like to see some of your writing. Where's the best place to do that?
I would say if you go to the AWAI website, it's awaionline.com. There is, there's a link on there where you can look at all, just do a search for me. There's a big search bar. You can just put in Mindy McCourse. But there's also, there's an article archive. That must be what I'm thinking of. So I'm trying to pull it up right now just so that I can, okay, so there's a tab called articles. If you go to the article archive, then you'll see several other copywriters' names on the far right, and my name is among them. Or you can just do a search for my name in that top search bar. I've written, I think probably most of my work was written for AWAI, especially because of writing the reality blog.
Okay. Oh boy. Again, it's a little bit more about finding clients and the best way to go about it. Once they find a company that they would like to write for, what's your advice then?
The number one thing I would do is obviously look at that company's online presence and kind of see what they're doing. If they have several different web pages, if they have a place where you can type in your email and start getting their emails and their newsletters, go ahead and do that, just because then you can get a feel for how they like to communicate with their customers. You can see what they're sending to them, what kinds of emails. Are they selling things through the emails? Are they just updating people about their products through the emails? You can get a feel for their voice, and you can start to understand what it is they're really communicating. Then you approach them. How you approach them can vary, but let's say that you are comfortable with calling them. You call up the company and you ask them if they hire freelance copywriters. And let's say they say yes, you ask who you speak to. Sometimes it's the marketing manager, sometimes it's the creative director. They come in all shapes and forms. And then you just tell them, look, I'm a copywriter. I have some samples at this website. Or I noticed that you like to send out email broadcasts about this particular product, but this one has not been promoted. I'd like to see if I can write an email for you. Or even just ask them, do you have any upcoming projects that you could use assistance with? Here are some samples of my work, or I'd like to write a spec sample for you. So that's if you were to call them on the phone. You can also do this via email. You can send them a hard copy letter, or you can just look to see if they have any. Sometimes some companies do have employment options, and they say, here are our writer guidelines, and here's what we're looking for.
And again, I want to point out, Patricia White mentioned this. Everybody does get a copy of 10 Places to Get Clients Now that Mindy put together that gives different examples of different types of copywriting. So, Mindy, do you want to just tell folks again how they get that?
Yes, sure. Just go to the website, www.thebarefootvwriter.com/free-reports, and you will be able to get a copy of that. And that link is also on the last slide of my presentation. I'm not sure if you can click on the live link in your copy, but at least you can see what it is there.
Okay. Kathleen Rosatier also pointed out that the Writer's Market is a great source for how to price your work. Also, the book 102 Ways to Earn a Living and that she says she recommends both of those.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm not familiar with that second book, but I'll take a look. And yes, Writer's Market I've seen.
And we're getting so many nice thank yous, which is very sweet. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Although I feel like we're not, I mean, we still have so much great information to provide. But really the majority of this is about how to price and fees. And we will put together something really special to so that you don't have questions, and so that that's not an obstacle. You don't want to worry about that yet. First thing is you want to get the skills, and then honestly, you just start telling people you're a copywriter, and it's amazing how one thing leads to another, and somebody says, oh, I need a new website, or gosh, I wanted to send out a letter, or my uncle or my brother or my sister, they could really use your help, and that really is how it works. Mindy's Rue wants to know, how is copywriting different from freelance magazine writing?
Well, I think it pays a lot more. No, specifically, most freelance magazine writing involves editorial, where you're telling a story about something, you're sharing your opinion. And in fact, I should add that for Barefoot Writer magazine, we do publish editorial articles from writers. So if you ever have any ideas, feel free to pitch them to me at my email address at askmindy@thebarefootwriter.com. In my experience, while writing for magazines can give you great experience, and fees do vary, I have written for magazines and I've gotten maybe a quarter of the fees that I would get writing the same kind of editorial for a copywriting client. There's the stigma that writing doesn't pay well, and I think that's because in a lot of cases it's true if you're talking about magazines and newspapers. Not all of them, certainly not all of them, but if you're writing, you can write editorial where, again, you're sharing a story or an opinion. You can write that for a copywriting client because they're putting content out there, but you will get higher fees because of it, especially if you position yourself as a copywriter as opposed to simply a freelance writer.
Great. Somebody's asking, is it hard to balance both writing and copywriting, or should I do both? In one of my answers, somebody else had a question about that. Is it a case of where people are going to have to make a choice between one or the others? And my experience with all the people that we've worked with that are fiction writers specifically, they say that what they've learned as a copywriter has helped their fiction writing, and then what they know as fiction writers has helped them be better copywriters, because so much of copywriting is about painting pictures of people enjoying the benefits of what the products are, or telling stories. A good many of the of sales letters start with a story lead, and when you add in persuasive writing techniques into your fiction writing, again, it's all about persuading the people to turn the page, to stay involved, and I think they marry nicely. But Mindy, since you have written books and are a copywriter, let's let you answer the question.
Yeah, well, I love what you said, Katie. I completely agree with all that. And what I find that they are two totally different types of writing, but they do complement each other. So it's like I mentioned before with cross-training. If you do both of them, and you certainly shouldn't ever feel like you should only do one or the other, because they do strengthen each other. What I like to do when I'm copywriting, I think of that as that's my professional business. So I do that during the day. That's how I'm earning money. That's where I stay focused, and I work at my desk. And I'm very, very particular. Fiction writing is more pleasure based. So when I'm writing fiction, I listen to music. I do it on my free time. I do it, outside of my office at a cafe. But like Katie said, the two do complement each other, because I notice my fiction writing has improved a great deal in the sense that it's not quite so flowery and wordy and lengthy, and I get to the point and I make the story clear a lot quicker. And I think that's because I've learned to self-edit rigorously because of my copywriting training. It's because I've learned to communicate more clearly because of my copywriting training. But then again, I think because of my fiction writing, that helps acquaint me with better approaches to using metaphors and new words, and then I try to marry that back into my copywriting so that it's not always the same, or so that I can change things up and spruce it up. So I'd say absolutely do both. But importantly, especially if you're planning to use copywriting as a way to earn income, make sure you set up a schedule so that you commit to that copywriting time to bringing in the work that you want, and then you do your fiction in the off hours. Or, you know, if you're earning money from your fiction too, then that's great. But just make sure that you make a commitment to both if you plan to do both equally.
Somebody's asking, how do they get started writing advertorials? Again, it's really no different. The process to getting started is the same for any type of writing that you want to specialize in, be it case studies, white paper, sales letters, websites, advertorials, catalog copy. It's really finding the companies that you'd like to work for, and starting your relationship with them by writing them a persuasive letter, getting touch in them in the most persuasive way that you can, and offering to help them out. And then you just take the relationship from there. I don't think you want to find people that are already doing what it is you would like to do. You know, your job isn't necessarily to convert people. I can't even imagine this as an example, but let's just say there's a company that says, no, I don't need a website. I don't need those things aren't gonna, they're just a passing fad, or, whatever ridiculous. I'm being ridiculous here as an example, but if they have their mindset that they don't need something, you know what? Good luck to them. Move on to the next one. You want somebody that says, yes, I have 10 websites and I want 10 more. Can you help me? We love advertorials, and, they work for us, and we can't keep up with the demand. Those are the kind of people you want to go after. You're not looking to convert anybody. You want to preach to the choir, to the people that already, and that's the same way. If people don't really understand what copywriting is, there are so many businesses that do, so many businesses that understand the value that you're bringing. You're solving a big problem for these companies. You're helping them be more successful. You're helping them communicate better to their prospects. You're helping them grow their business. So, they're there welcoming you with open arms, because you're going to ultimately make them more successful.
Right, Katie, I think that's such a great point. And, the best advice I was given once is that, let's say you're looking for clients, you want to do some web writing, so you want to write some websites. If you go and you find a client who has a website with maybe 2 pages and they're not sending out emails or newsletters, it's very easy to think this is the perfect client because, look, they need copy, they need emails, they don't have any of this set up. Not usually. Usually your better bet is to go to a client who has a very extensive website with lots of pages, who's already sending emails, who already has blog posts and case studies and all kinds of things published, because that shows you they appreciate the value of good copy. The first person, maybe they'll hire you and it could be a great experience, but in most cases they would need to be persuaded, and it's just not worth your time. So, especially if you're getting started, I would say to look for the clients who value copy and who don't need you to talk them into anything.
Okay. Oh, boy, so many thank yous. That's so wonderful.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And I'm just trying to, here, this question I appreciate, and have to give a plug to the AWAI Accelerated Program for Six-Figure Copywriting. The question is, can you recommend a program that has lots of exercises to aid practice and build experience? And the Accelerated Program for Six-Figure Copywriting is the flagship program for AWAI. It's what we launched our company with, and it's been the cornerstone. It's the foundation for persuasive writing, for learning persuasive writing, and it's based on in the trenches experience. It's constantly updated. It has many exercises. By the time you're finished the program, you have actually written a full sales letter, and it breaks the process down into bite-sized pieces and gives you tools to use, so that you basically can't write a bad headline. You understand the structure. So as long as you fill in the structure, your copy is going to be good enough. You can always make it better. You can always learn more. But by the time you're done with that, you will be able to deliver what your clients are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
From there, go on, Mindy, sorry.
I just wanted to add, that's the program that I learned copywriting from. It's the only program I've ever referred to, and I've been fortunate to do quite well. So I absolutely applaud it. But I think more importantly, I want to point out, yes, you can definitely go out and find a book, from your library on copywriting. That's going to tell you some things. But what's more valuable, I think, about the AWAI program is that it has actual exercises that you get feedback on. And even more important than that, it puts you in touch with this whole active community of writers who are so incredibly supportive of each other. And personally, if I hadn't connected with other people who supported me in this journey, who understood it, because my home, my friends and family, they're great, but they're not writers. They don't really understand this world. If I hadn't been connected with all these other writers that I met, essentially because I started with that program, then I don't know that I would be where I am today. So I just wanted to add that.
And I do want to point out that this webinar really is about the opportunities. It's not about the how-to necessarily, but I can see how that is what people are looking for and hoping for. Mindy is the editor of The Barefoot Writer, which is this wonderful publication that has grown out of all of the success stories that we've had and all of the people who have taken these skills and just created their own lives out of them. None look the same. It's all people from all different walks of life with different goals and different dreams and different ways of actualizing their version of what we call the writer's life. And if you follow Mindy's publication, if you follow The Barefoot Writer every month, you're going to get these insights into, the type of people that Mindy introduced you today, and you're going to see how they did it, and you're going to see how they're actually taking these skills and creating these wonderful lives. So, the Barefoot Writer is a great way to check in, see that it's real, see what all the different opportunities are, and see how people are applying those opportunities. For the how-to stuff, that really is more in programs and dedicated courses to those particular topics. So I hope that kind of explains the difference as well, too, that I think I'm getting in some of the questions.
Well, and if I can add to that, Katie, I think one thing that we should definitely do, we'll do a bonus webinar that addresses all of these questions, and I'd like to, I think I'll present 5 different ways that you can go into this profession, basically 5 different approaches to finding clients, 5 different approaches to setting your fees, and 5 different industries, just as an example, for all of you who are looking for the specifics on how to get started. So and that should address a lot of these extra questions, because I remember being in your shoes and thinking, gosh, this sounds great, but what do I do next? So we will make sure that we address everything that you're wondering about. Great.
And so you'll hear about that. I think let's see. Maybe we should end on this note. James writes that I'm a poet. Can I have a successful transition into copywriting?
Sure. Yeah, I say that because I can't think of their names, but there are at least 2 copywriters that I have featured in Barefoot Writer magazine who are also poets. One writes poetry on the side just for herself because she enjoys it. The other one, I think, has maybe even been published. I believe their copywriting in both situations is a separate endeavor. I don't believe they incorporate any of their poetry into the copywriting, although that might certainly make you a better, more articulate. You might have a better grasp on certain words in a different way. I wouldn't put it aside at all. I would definitely just keep pursuing both, and I know it's been done.
On that note, I think we should probably wrap it up. Do you anything else to add?
Just a huge thank you to everybody for listening today, and thank you for such valuable questions and for connecting with us. It's this is something that I'm so passionate about because I never knew what kinds of opportunities were out there, and I spent a couple of years following something that didn't fulfill me and that didn't suit my lifestyle. But now that I have this, I couldn't imagine ever going back. And so anybody who is even remotely interested in this opportunity, I really encourage you to look into it. It gives you so many options and so much more control over your life, and really just, it's a lot of fun. So thank you so much for listening today and for all your valuable questions.
Thanks, Mindy. Thanks, everybody.